Yes, good morning, all my friends here, and to those online. It could be good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening. I'm very delighted to be here at this very important occasion. I think it's spearheaded by NUS Enterprise, and I'm also extremely privileged that even Mr. Brian Ko, Director NUS Enterprise, is here to, I hope, to support the. Yes, thank you, Brian, and of course, all of you, my colleagues, and many of the startups. I'll be sharing with you some of the key ideas, ideals, and even practicalities, prospects of sustainability. And usually, in my talk, I don't stand behind a podium. I'll be walking around. The first thing I came just now checking is, does the camera follow me when I walk, because I might even jump off stage and get your opinion. So, and they say that the camera will follow me because sustainability is something that you have to be with the stakeholder. It is not something that you do behind the scene, behind the podium, and just speak off the ivory tower. So what I'm going to do today is to share with you some of my perspectives, experiences in this space all across the world, but particularly in my series of recent interaction that I have together with Enterprise of Singapore, NUS Enterprise, particularly the Technology Access Program. I believe the team is also here, headed by Sazali. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, good. So let me just move on. As a speaker, the MC just said I come from a place at NUS, CGS. So some of you, if you want to find out something more, I won't say too much, but not now, but maybe later, if you just Google NUS CGS, you can find out all the things that we do in corporate sustainability as well as in corporate governance. So there's quite a bit of information. And lately, we have been very, very active collaborating with the enterprise wing, the enterprise mission of the university. My talk today, which is just about 15 minutes, and I definitely will welcome questions at the end, or even in between. Feel free to put up the hand. You're the customer, yes, always right. So anytime you can talk to me, but what I will cover today will be just on 4 aspects, 4 movements, the 4 key notions contextualized, and I'll tell you certain, I would say, real happenings and even real examples of company. But basically, I will be covering 2 big ideas: sustainability leading to performance, and how does this linkage depend on something that's very visible, which is innovation. So that's the third part of the structure of today's talk. And then the foundation is governance. And I want to share with you sustainability today, this morning here, along 4 stories. I will tell you 4 stories within the 15 to 20 minutes to ground, to realize some of the things I want to share with you. So let me just articulate, deliver the first linkage. How is sustainability or even ESG? And of course, I'll talk about ESG, but I think all of you should know ESG, right? These 3 alphabets is now the hottest flavor of the month. I think if you probably have not heard ESG, I'm not so sure which planet you're from because it's all about planet Earth. So environment, social, and governance, but I'll come more to that. So in terms of the relationship, in terms of the nexus with innovation, let me tell you the first story. It's about story of the chicken and the egg. And normally for many of us here, when we talk about chicken and egg, you ask yourself one question, right? Chicken first or egg first? Chicken first or egg first? Egg. Chicken first or egg first? Oh, okay, never mind. Brian, chicken first or egg first? Chicken. Okay. In fact, I think this is one of the fundamental puzzle. And I think there's no right answer. It all depends on where you're looking from. It could be the egg, it could be chicken. Of course, we can say if there's no chicken, how can there be an egg? If there's no egg, how can there be a chicken? So the same thing is with sustainability and innovation. Which comes first? Is it sustainability or is it innovation? I think let's start with this. Supposing we want to start with innovation, and many of the things I will share now is actually contextualized to some of the work that I've been doing with one specific company, a German company, semiconductor manufacturer. They are quite good in the various solutions of semiconductor, Infineon. In fact, just a few months back, I was exactly in their October Tech Festival giving the keynote like today. I was beaming, with the Infineon. And, I want to tell you, because in Infineon, what they have done is very, very interesting. They actually have a dual perspective in how sustainability interacts with innovation. For example, if you look at the first perspective, the first idea, suppose you say sustainability comes first, it will help you to do better innovation. Definitely it will be, because, if you look at this process orientation, you can say that, it can lead you to be more efficient, more effective. Some of you may be in the lean manufacturing space, for example. You can have a lean innovation, lean startups. You can be actually very pinpointed and focused. So in other words, you are actually using certain aspects of sustainability to drive your innovation so that you can reduce your burden, particularly, for example, say environmental burden. So, you can actually reduce your water, reduce your energy consumption, reduce your waste, be aligned with climate, in the process of innovation. And I think even in my example, Infineon that I know, they have a office here, the huge plant here in Singapore, in Kallang. Of course, they are all based in Germany, near Munich. That's their headquarters. And I think this is something very good. But what I'm saying is it should go beyond just the process innovation. It should actually drive the other way around. Many of you here are from startups. I can see some of you are actually at our NUS Enterprise corner. All the startups are here. I'm very happy that just now I was walking around many of the startups, not only from Singapore, but also from Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, from Indonesia. Just now I was even talking to one startup from Bandung. So, it was very good. And I think many of the products that you do, including my personal experience, just the story of Infineon, what they have done is they embed sustainability in their product that will have a very, very strong second order effect on the entire system. For example, you can come out with microcomputer chips. You can come out with beyond the chips, from the chips to the specific solutions. For example, in transportation, for example, in smart homes, for example, in consumer electronics. You can actually reduce the burden to the world. And I believe many of the startups now that under our TAP program, many of them are actually conscientiously trying to reduce, particularly, say, the carbon footprint. And back to my Infineon example, I think it's very interesting. What they have done is they have done some verified calculation. And very, very interestingly, in the German Infineon case, they have made a net ecological benefit to the world to the ratio of 1:35. 1:35. In other words, the carbon burden that they have assumed as a company is, for example, X. What they have reduced for the rest of the world system in terms of the solutions that they put up using a life cycle calculation, a product life cycle. In other words, you calculate the carbon burden of the products until perhaps the end of life of the product. They actually have an impact of 35 multiplier effect on the net reduction in the ecological burden. So I think for many of us here, if you do innovation, not only within the process of innovation, you can be sustainable. What is actually more important is the higher order effect. Sometimes in economics, we say it's the spillover effects. In fact, I think spillover is just too minuscule. It should be the real impact of what they do is to do the work. So I think, you need to have these two orientation coexisting together. Okay? Not just the initial process orientation. In fact, it should go on because the bigger impact is in the product orientation. And if these two come together, it's perfect harmony. So back to chicken and egg, there's no right answer. They are all together at the same time. The chicken and the egg and the chicken. There's no such thing as which is first. Two of them must be together, especially in the relationship between innovation and sustainability. So this is the story of the chicken and egg. I pause here if there's any query. I know coincidentally I just had 2 half-boiled eggs for breakfast today. So, I'm very inspired by eggs because that's my usual breakfast. Half-boiled eggs, 2 of them with the standard Singapore kaya toast and some tea. Okay, now very good. I told you the first story, chicken and egg. Now let's look at the other relationship. Then later at the end I will tie them all together. Okay, what is the nexus? What is the interface between governance and sustainability? And I think that this is probably one of my pet areas because I come from the center that started with governance. I'll say 11 years ago when we were founded. And then later on, we moved into sustainability, embrace even the word sustainability. In fact, the word sustainability literally did not exist in my entire education. I did a PhD. I never used or even know about the word sustainability. In the US, the closest we got was global warming. Yeah, when I spent 8 years in the States, everybody was just beginning to talk about global warming. But for many of the things in sustainability to happen or not to happen, including global warming, including mitigating and even responding, adapting to climate change, we need to start with something even more fundamental, which is why I put it as the foundation. Governance as a foundation. And to this, I will tell you the second story. The story of the cat and the horse. Yes, just now we have chicken and egg, cat and horse. Let me ask you again. Horse come first or cat come first? This one is probably more obvious. Is the cat first or horse first? Scream it out, then I'll repeat. Horse come first. Yes. Have you ever seen a system where the cart is in front of the horse? Have you? No, right? Yeah. So it's the same as governance. And I think that let me motivate this story with the 3 alphabets. I promise I will talk about the 3 alphabets. This is something not new to all of you. Recap, I took this from World Economic Forum, some of the key components, some of the key elements under ESG, and many of you here who are doing innovation, including startup, probably have embraced, embedded many of this into what you do, your product offering, your service offering. No problem, ESG. And of course, this has also been mapped to many things. I call it review because usually most of you have heard this, the triple bottom line. made famous by a UK writer, John Wilkington, but never mind, sometimes some of the best writers, they are just writing and they come out with the best theory and, the 3 Ps, this I don't have to say, but the people, planet, profit actually maps exactly directly into ESG. So if you look at ESG, now that there's a very basic puzzle. Have you ever wondered why the alphabets are arranged in this way? E first, and then S, and then G. To begin with, it's not even alphabetical in order. Why is G after S? Why is E first? Why is S in the center? Is it a typographical error? I mean, if you want to be fair and square, alphabetical, it should be EGS. If you think E is most important, you put it first, but why is S before G? Does it mean that G, governance, is actually the afterthought? The afterthought? No. Or is it just something, like one of the cliches that I always heard? At the end of the day, is governance an issue? At the end of the day, when the sun sets, you start to worry about it during happy hour. No. And I think in ESG, my thesis, my proposal to you, in fact, my exhortation to you today now is that G should come first. G is the horse. E and S should be the cart. You know why? And I think maybe you don't have to think too deep. It's not rocket science. E and S will not happen unless there's G. E and S in any company, in any startup, in any innovation, do not just drop down from the sky. It will have to be motivated, encouraged, incentivized, or even punished if not done well by some element, and usually it's called corporate leadership, and usually it is part of the overall act of governing the organization with policies, with programs, with practices, with cultures, with context, with content that is totally mainstream into the organization. Okay, so G is the horse. E and S are the cart. I think this is something very clear, and it also happened in my research center name. I have Center for Governance and Sustainability. The horse comes first. So this ESG is actually a misnomer. It's one of the puzzle. Everybody take it for granted. It's like the elephant in the room. Okay, the last story, the third story is leading to performance. Very quickly, I'm talking about story of the tortoise and the hare. In a race, does the tortoise win or the hare? Do you all know the childhood fable? The hare will run first, and then the hare is far ahead, and then he look back, laugh at the tortoise, and then the hare fell asleep, and then the tortoise in a good momentum win the race. And I think for sustainability, it's the same thing. We need to adopt a long-term perspective. We need a business case, and over the last few years, I've been writing quite a lot of things about businesses need a business case. Then the business case, I would say, is performance-based. You don't expect companies, startup, innovation to be altruistic charity. There must be something in it for them. And just a few seconds, even in my personal research at NUS, I personally have done some academic studies of companies, say, for example, listed in the Singapore Exchange. I have two studies, and I have established the reference there. I'm not so sure whether the slides are given to the audience, but I'm most willing if the organizer can even circulate the slides. What I found is sustainability measured by the reporting is positively and significantly related to market value. And in the second paper, positively and significantly related to brand value. And I have established that investors will value them, consumers will value them, and when investors value them, it means the cost go down, cost of capital go down. If consumers value them, it means revenue go up. Revenue minus cost is equal to profit, and therefore profit go up, and therefore everybody live happily ever after. Okay, that's in a nutshell. So let me go on to the overall integration, and I will say I will use the last story in the last few seconds. Okay, yeah, okay. This is the story of the fox and geese, the last story. Fox and geese, some of you may have played the game, right? You have all the geese surrounding the fox. The fox try to escape. And how do the geese, you can see the board here, win the fox is they have to act together in unity. This is not a very complicated game, but I used to play that in my childhood. You can make a move, and then you can jump over and eat up the geese, and then, if you can block them, in the end, you can surround the fox until the fox cannot move, so you win. And what happened is, I think it's very important to have the collective action. Yesterday was Children's Day, so I got these graphics. Many of the countries in the world have Children's Day. I think we need together to come together, and I believe one of the most effective collective action globally is probably, I would say, the monumental Paris Agreement. At least at many countries' level, we have nationally determined contribution that will cascade down to regulatory requirements that will very, very significantly affect corporate actions, which will in turn affect innovative requirements. And also within the whole ecosystem, it will motivate the directions, aspiration of startup. So I think it's very important to act together, like the geese trying to win the fox. So that's a fourth story. So I hope, within these 15 minutes, and we still have a couple of minutes for Q&A, I hope I have left nothing but footprint. I hope all of you can take some picture, and within these 15 minutes, I hope I have killed nothing but time. I hope your time has been quite worth it to listen to my unraveling of the hypes, and hope I must end with this note. If you want to have a good relationship between sustainability and performance grounded on governance, it is innovation that will raise the hopes. It is innovation that will reduce the hypes. So the onus and the responsibility is on all of you here in this space, particularly in this Asia Tech InnoFest, founded and organized by NUS Enterprise. I think this is a very, very important platform to realize the perfect relationship in my four-story model. With that, I thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But do I have time for Q&A or something? I think there might be some time. I'm not sure. I pass back to you. Okay. Sure. I think the organizer allowed me to take questions, whether online, on-site, or any query or any comments, or you have a fifth story to tell me, then I add into my model. Anyone? Okay, come. Yes.
Hi. How do you see behavioral change playing a key role in this transition to a more sustainable world?
Yes, the behavioral change. Okay, let me repeat the question. How do you see the behavioral change in our transition towards more sustainability? And I'll say this is definitely the mother of all challenges. Behavioral responses, behavioral proactive actions at many levels, national level, corporate level, and individual level. And I think right now what we are seeing is, as far as collective action is concerned, we have been making some milestones in at least the global agenda, especially the COP. I'm sure you heard of COP conference of the parties. COP21 was the Paris Agreement. Last year we have COP26 in Glasgow. This year coming up in Egypt, we have COP27. And many of the countries are now coming together, including even declaring their intention for what we call the net zero. So for example, even some of the key Asian countries, which are actually, key, I would say, emitters of carbon, for example, say two big countries in Asia. Of course, Asia is both the problem and the solution. So even a place like China, they declared 2060, India 2070, Singapore will be around 2050. We have not made a definitive statement on the exact date yet. We say around or after 2050. So at the national level, I think we have enough momentum. And then there are some regulation coming up, including the Singapore setting. Listed companies are now required to make many responses. But I think the key challenge, and I think this is probably the last mile problem, is actually responses behavior at the individual level. This is the third level. If we can cross the chasm here, and I'm very elated because at least I can see, I come from NUS, almost all my students are now Gen Y. Used to be Gen Y, now they are Gen Z. We are graduating Gen Z already. They are actually very, very conscious. They live by the SDG, so Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, thank you. Maybe one question more, or do I have time? Okay, I think maybe just one quick question. I promise you I just give a quick response. Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence, my quick question is, how does greenwashing impact the ESG movement?
Yes, I think greenwashing is the other big problem. The non-authenticity. In fact, in much of my work in corporation, sustainability is sometimes part of the corporate communications department, and they always want to look good. For example, in my study, the latest study done last year is a biennial study. I will continue of of all the markets in Singapore Exchange. My center is commissioned by Singapore Exchange Regulation to conduct the assessment for them on the level of compliance. One specific finding: 100% of all companies will say good things about their company. Barely between half and two-thirds over 2 years. Only between half and two-thirds will disclose the unfavorable aspects that are needed for stakeholders. For example, workplace accident, violation of environment, significant fines, emission of carbon. Right now, only about between half and two-thirds. So it's a phenomenon that we need to definitely address, not only with regulation, but I think stakeholders, particularly investors and consumers, will have to send the right signals to the companies so that they will mitigate, they will reduce, not only carbon, reduce greenwashing. I mean, greenwashing happens everywhere. The biggest greenwashing is now very popular in all the resumes, all the CV. You look at LinkedIn, I mean, last year LinkedIn and this year LinkedIn, same person, same resume. Suddenly this person, the whole life, he or she is doing ESG, They say they have been doing ESG in the year 2000 when even the term was not, in existence yet. That's happened in LinkedIn CV. I mean, I don't know how they do it even when we have not heard about it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.